All right, let's have some fun with MySQL. So first we need to get some data in here to play with before we start messing around with Scoop and importing and exporting stuff. So I've already sparked up my virtual box here with my Hortonworks sandbox environment. So if you haven't done that already, go ahead and get that going. And I'm going to log into it using PuTTY. And again, if you're on Mac OS, you'll just use your terminal prompt instead like we've done before. And here we go. So, there we go. All right, log in as Maria_dev as usual, and let's play with SQL. So, first we need to log into SQL. So MySQL does come installed already on the Hortonworks sandbox, so that makes things nice and simple. We just need to log into it. So to do that, we're going to type in MySQL-u root, meaning we're going to log in as the root user. Obviously, normally you wouldn't do that due to permissions issues, but we're just messing around here, so why not? And -p, so I get a password prompt. The default password for root on MySQL on Hortonworks is Hadoop, Hadoop, and we're in. So let's start by creating a MovieLens database, and then we'll import some data from MovieLens into it. So let's start by saying create database MovieLens, just like that. And we should have a MovieLens database. Let's type in show databases, semicolon, just to make sure it's there. And yep, we have a MovieLens database alongside with everything else that's in here already. So you can see that other tools like Ranger and Hive also depend on MySQL, which is why it's handily already installed. So let's exit out of here for the time being and download the actual data from MovieLens in SQL format. So I've already published a little copy of the MovieLens dataset for you. That is just a sequence of SQL commands that we can run as a script. So to get that, let's type in wget http://media.sundog-soft.com/hadoop/movielens.sql. Okay? Hit pause and go and do that if you need to, if you're following along, which of course I encourage. All right, let's just make sure it's there. Yep, movielens.sql. If you want to take a peek of what's in there, you can see it's just a script that contains a bunch of SQL commands. And if you're new to SQL, well, you can probably figure out what's going on here without too much trouble. Obviously, there's entire courses on SQL if you're totally new to this and this is foreign, but I'm assuming you've seen some SQL before. If not, it's not that hard to pick out what's going on. So you can see there's just a giant table insert here going on to put all the ratings data in, all the customer data in, or user data, I should say. Here's the actual ratings here, and down toward the end there'll be the actual movie names and whatnot. So everything we need is in there. Let's go ahead and log back in to MySQL. MySQL-u-root-p. Password is Hadoop. And we need to tell it that the data is in UTF-8 format. So there are some funny international characters in this that we need to prepare ourselves for. So to do that, we're going to type in set names, single quote UTF-8, single quote, just like that. And we're also going to say set character set UTF-8, just like that. Okay, now that we have our character set, we need to tell it what database we're using. So we're going to say use MovieLens to use the database that we created earlier. And now we can finally import that data using that script. So we can just say source movielens.sql. And that should set everything up. Awesome, looks like it worked. Let's see what's in there. Show tables. And looks like we have all sorts of fun stuff in the MovieLens database. So we have a genres, movies, occupations, ratings, and users. Everything we could dream of. Let's take a little peek. Let's say select star from movies, limit 10. That'll just get the first 10 rows out of the movies table so we can get a feel as to what's in there. And looks like that includes the mapping of movie IDs to movie titles and release dates. So that's fun stuff there. All right, so while we're at it, we can take a look at what's in the ratings table as well. So we can do a describe ratings and see that the fields we're dealing with there are called ID, user_ID, movie_ID, rating, and time rated at is what they're calling the timestamp here. So gonna need to know what those columns are actually named so we can actually use them. So let's do that. Let's recreate what we did with Hive using just straight up MySQL SQL syntax. So let's figure out the top rated movies and tie them together with their movie names just like we did with Hive. Now, unlike Hive, we don't have those views available to us, so we're going to have to do this in one big giant SQL query. I'll show you what that looks like. Select, feel free to follow along with me here if you want, movies.title, comma, count, parent, ratings.movie_ID as rating count. So this tells us that we're trying to create as output two columns, one that is the movie title and the second that is the count of how many times that movie occurs in the ratings database. Okay, so that's going to be the movie title and the number of times it was rated, and we're calling that second column rating count. And we're going to need that so we can refer to it later when we want to tell it how to sort the results. Continue on to a second line here. We're going to say from the movies table is where we're going to get those movie titles from. And we're going to do an inner join with the ratings table, and we're going to join them based on the movie IDs. So on movies.id equals ratings.movie_ID, which is the name of those fields in both tables. Group by movie.title, or movies.title, sorry. And finally, order by rating count. Semicolon tells it that we're done. So let's double check this for typos because it's going to be unfortunate if this doesn't work. All right, so we're selecting the movie's title and the count of the number of times that movie appears in the ratings table, calling that rating count. From the movies table, doing an inner join with the ratings table to tie together the movies and the ratings based on their IDs, group by the movie title, and order it by the rating count. Let's kick it off, see what happens. And you can see that we got the same answer. So Star Wars is still the most popular movie in this data set with 583 ratings. But it was so much faster than using Hive. So remember, you got to choose the right tool for the job. This MovieLens 100K dataset isn't really that big. So you wouldn't really get any benefit at all in using Hadoop to analyze this dataset. Now, when you get up to the more recent datasets that have millions of ratings, then it starts to make sense. But for a data that can fit on one machine, you're going to be much better served by tools like MySQL because they can just chug away on things locally, cache things all in memory. It's always going to outperform the performance of a cluster. The cluster comes into play when you have too much data to process on a single host. And that's where things become possible that wouldn't have been even possible before, right? But anyway, we've got MySQL set up now. In the next lecture, let's use Scoop to actually mess around with that data and push it back and forth to Hadoop and Hive. And when you're done here, just type in exit to get back to your main prompt.